We're pretty excited about this new development with Starlink Internet that is blowing the lid off the mobile internet industry. We've got all the details in this video, plus I'm gonna show you 3 Starlink hacks you're gonna wanna know if you plan on using Starlink for your RV. So up until recently, Starlink Internet was not an internet solution advertised for mobile users. However, this doesn't mean it didn't work for mobile users. They just announced a new RV-specific option, which I'm gonna talk about in just a few minutes. But first, I wanna share about how things have evolved and what our personal experience has been so far. We received our Starlink dish and router setup at the beginning of February of this year and set it up at the service address that we used to receive it. We are very impressed with the quality of speeds, and we're really happy with the service overall. Now, the next test came when we wanted to travel with the Starlink, and this is where hack number 1 comes in. Now, you might remember that when Starlink first hit the market, it was not advertised as being a solution for people on the move. To set up Starlink Service, you would need to have a service address. The way Starlink Service is set up involves beaming internet data via radio signals through space on a low Earth orbit, and then there are ground stations on the Earth that broadcast these signals back to the satellites in orbit, which then relay the data back to users on Earth via these satellites. When Starlink first came out, service was limited to certain areas, and Starlink focused mostly on rural areas where internet had not been widely available in the past or was available on a very limited basis. These service areas are known as cells. The coverage map shows availability in areas where you can obtain and get service. Anything marked available and waitlist are areas with service. Coming soon areas show expected availability. So when we first got our Starlink set up, there was an open cell in our area that we could connect to, and that's why we were able to get the equipment, but we wanted to travel with our setup. So the first test that we did was taking our Starlink system to the Florida Keys, and this is where we used hack number 1 for our Starlink setup with the Flagpole Buddy mount. Now this mount makes it super easy to set up the Starlink dishy, and there is no more need to climb up and down the ladder. So if you don't want to use a pole on the ladder like we're using, there is another option that you can use, which is installing a pivot mount that is mounted and fixed to the roof of your RV. We opted to not drill holes in the roof, hence why the Flagpole Buddy makes it much easier for us, and we don't have to climb the ladder up on top of the roof to set up the dish. Now, we did not have any service during that trip to the Florida Keys. Where we stayed was in the middle of the Florida Keys, and it was in February of this year. We did, however, get service in the Key Largo area by changing our service address to an area just outside of Homestead, Florida. We've also had very successful service in the Fort Myers area of Florida, and this was all prior to the recent changes that we're going to talk about shortly. Now, hack number 2 is for actually storing your Starlink system when you're on the go, and that is using the Husky tote from Home Depot. Now, I'm going to put a link in the description below for a very similar one on Amazon as well, in case that you don't have a Home Depot in the area that you're in. But this was a super easy setup. All we did is took the insert out of the actual box that the Starlink satellite came in, and it stores away perfect, and it's a much better solution than the cardboard box that it came in. Now, Starlink recently announced a new option for RVers, and it would seem that the RV option versus the residential option with portability are pretty much the same service when it comes to prioritization with roaming, which is where a service address gets priority service, and the same upfront equipment costs, with one exception, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. So now hack number 3 for us was going lithium to be able to power our Starlink. So we just installed 4 Battleborn lithium batteries, which we're excited about because these bad boys are gonna help us keep our Starlink powered up when we're in a boondocking or a lot docking situation, which I want to say includes those Harvest Host stays, because most of those Harvest Host locations are pretty much all boondocking or dry camping, and you're gonna need something to power your setup. These Starlink setups do take some power. So I'm gonna put a link below to Battleborn as well, where you can learn more about why that lithium batteries are just a much better solution for RVers versus lead acid or AGM batteries. So now when it comes to the residential plan versus the RV plan with Starlink, the one difference according to the Starlink website is the option to turn the service off and on, or basically pausing your service, is included with the RV option. Now at this time, it does not appear that if you're a current Starlink user with a current setup, that you're going to be able to switch from a residential plan to an RV plan with the extra portability option without buying all new equipment. With the RV plan, they're requiring all new equipment. You have to purchase everything to get that plan with the availability to pause and then restart service as needed, versus right now, we've got the residential setup and we're not able to pause and restart service, but the service is the exact same as far as the internet that we're getting. This new RV plan is perfect for those who are not full-time RVers and would like a mobile internet option for traveling on a more limited basis or as maybe a potential backup option. It is also a great option for full-time RVers since the cost of the monthly service is the exact same as the residential option with portability. It just gives you that option for month to month with the RVers versus being locked into paying for a service every month, unless that you just completely want to cancel. In which case, if you do cancel, you may or may not be waitlisted again if you choose to reactivate service. Now, it is important to note that as of this time, Starlink is still saying that you cannot get service while in motion. That means you can't put the dish on your roof, drive down the road, and have internet. At least this is the official word from Starlink. However, some users have reported being able to do this and have service, but it's not what Starlink says. One thing to remember is that Starlink service is a little bit like the wild, wild west right now, with terms of service, costs, all being subject to change, and it seems like being subject to change on a more frequent basis. Also, if you're in a wooded area with a lot of tree overhang, or maybe in a canyon area, you might not have the best service with Starlink. Overall, we're pretty excited with the new RV option, and we've had great experience so far and do plan on keeping our Starlink for the long haul as an all-in-one internet solution for RV living. Although we're not quite ready to ditch our cellular hotspots completely, we are pretty excited about the direction that Starlink is taking for mobile internet users. One thing to remember is that Starlink service is a little bit, you've got to be kidding me, is a little bit like the wild, wild west right now in terms of...
What? Rest?
Yes. Rest. Starlink's noise pollution.
Wrong one.
It's the one you told me. Take two. Let us know if you're using Starlink currently. Are you planning on taking it with you on your travels? Will you be ordering the new RV setup? How does this change the current mobile internet setup that you're using? Do you have mobile internet yet? Let us know, as we love hearing from all of you in the RV community, and we can also learn from each other what's working and what's not, so you can leave us some comments below. We also want to invite you to join our free Discord server where we can continue the Starlink conversation and other RV related discussions there as well. Link will be below. So I'm gonna put a video right up here with more information about Starlink and mobile internet in general. You definitely wanna take a look at this information before that you make that mobile internet decision. If we don't see you out on the road or around the campground, we'll see you in the next video.